Okay, good afternoon, Prof. Yang and everyone, my friend. Because I'm still in Indonesia, so I deliver this presentation by online. In this opportunity, I would like to convey and discuss an article entitled Innovation, Governance, and Capabilities Implication for Competition Policy. This article is presented to Oliver Williamson by his colleague and TIS. And actually, I would like to say that this article is very good to encourage our knowledge, even though it's quite difficult, especially for me, to understand all of this article. But however, let me try to present it as well as I can. This article contains eight subtitles or subtopics, which consists of introduction, digital economy and big data, capabilities approach, capability consideration, dynamic capabilities, ecosystem, competition policy issues in high tech, and then a conclusion. Okay, we start with introduction. As an introduction, this article explains who Oliver is and what his impact on economic is. He was a multidisciplinary scholar whose work impacted many areas of economics and also of political science and sociology. And the important thing is he was responsible for reviving the subject of institutional economics. In his novel, he proclaimed that transaction cost economics, or we call it TCE, is concerned with complex contract or complex business organization. According to him, transaction costs cannot be zero, which is currently still used as a standard economic assumption. He agrees that the transaction costs or corporate governance of economic activities are positive or favorable. So it cannot be zero. Williamson found that institution, regulation, and complex organization structures were very often necessary to make market work well. With these findings, he wanted to correct the neoclassical view of the transaction cost perspective. And this article will be discussed it more in the next page. This article is built using the Wilson framework, actually, with a capabilities approach to confirm big questions, such as how should we understand the nature of a competitive advantage of big tech companies? Fang companies is Fang is Facebook, and then Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. So the next question is their business behavior consistent with TCA capabilities? The next question is, when should they be allowed to make acquisitions? To answer the above questions, this article will be starting a discussion about the digital economy. So let's going to next slide here. Over the past 15 years, at least, digital era has seen innovation in the form of algorithm and portable electronic devices, such as Google search engine with algorithm inside. Combination of this invention required the development of new business model. And the new business model, Williamson called it an organizational innovation. That's why we must put the algorithm and device and device platform as an asset or resource, because algorithm and platform device can be continuously improved and leveraged in the future. That's why we have to put it as asset or resource, because it's very important in the future. As we know today, Network effects are not the principal advantage anymore for the incumbent company, because big data will make more prominent than it. For example, FAANG companies, FAANG is referred to Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, now powered primarily by customer data, the real-time data on customers' activities, on customers' locations, on customers' behaviors. They are provided important clues about what customer needs today, what their aspiration now. Okay, so the data analysis is a key capability of big tech firms, and that's why the data resources and tools for rapid learning, or here is artificial intelligence, have important implication for firm and industry boundaries. Talking about the industry boundaries, Williamson here said that the big locomotive that determines firm boundaries issues was always asset specificity. Asset specificity is non what non-reployable investment to support the transaction. So because asset specificity is non-redeployable investment to support the transaction, that's why big data is included to the asset specificity. If there any business relationship requires asset specificity, a fundamental transformation in the relationship would be concerning. I mean that they have to be careful in building the fundamental transformation with the partner. Since they are in data-driven big tech company, integrated or internalization is preferred for them. In other words, they should be integrated and internalized with each other. And we're talking about the capabilities approach in this article. Besides the role of asset specificity, the other relevant consideration is firm level capabilities. Capabilities can be categorized as ordinary and dynamic. Ordinary is usually static and all only doing things right. But dynamic is usually forward-looking and doing the right things. I would say that ordinary usually say nothing about whether the current product is already right or even profitable or not. But dynamic is usually determined whether the firm making the right product and addressing the right market segments or not. So dynamic is more useful than ordinary capability. So in this article also said that change processes are key. Change processes are key element of higher level competence. It's also called dynamic capabilities. But however, unfortunately, standard industrial organization economics ignores dynamic capabilities perspective. They only look at ordinary capabilities in view of the competition between the company. So from this article, we know the reason why policy tend to favor static competition or ordinary capabilities, and in the other hand, they were cripple or ignore dynamic capabilities. So this article is very good to explain about it. And we're talking about the technological capabilities and firm boundaries. Williamson said the firm boundaries must be set not only with contractual issues, but also with the technological capabilities. Why? Because technological capabilities involve elements of both ordinary and dynamic capabilities. Ordinary means related to operation management, and dynamic capabilities is related to entrepreneurial management. And um, technological capabilities are not only actually are not only capabilities required, they also need governance and contracting are thus closely related. So a company must be able to effectively govern the ecosystem of actors for outsourced activities or partnership activities. The capabilities approach also has a paradox of tighter integration and, in other hand, amplified outsourcing. Generally, the largest tech company tightly integrates around a strategic core, and the rest will be outsourcing. The paradox is the core can change anytime. The core can change over time. Here, for example, is data processing and storage. Now, the data processing and storage are less core because the cloud service by third party, cloud service. In this scenario, outsourcing is completely consistent with creating and maintaining an asset capability. In this case, the need to vertically integrate it has been reduced. Actually, this was predicted by the Williamson TCE framework that contractual can completely and stably govern relationship between supplier and consumer of non-transaction specific service. And what the advantage of data ownership? This article also explore about it. A critical source for digital enterprises is from owning and exploiting key data lakes, data that record customer behaviors and preferences. There are two significant economic challenges. The first one is the common output. The common output arises because the data comes from many different sources and is used in many different ways. That's why it become a challenge. And then the second one is knowledge asset. Actually, is very few firms or company can do this well, can do the knowledge asset well. And for example, to illustrate this advantage of data ownership is Google. Google is an iconic example of this case because Google knows very well how to take the value of collecting customer data. Google knows where devices are located, you know, and Google know what website just we visit and so on. Google know a lot about user, and then Google leverage it to the advertiser to make money. And because of its ability to connect the data, Google has a very profitable business model right now. And then this article talk about capability consideration and Williamson contracting framework. Williamson contracting framework is also called TCE or TCE, transaction cost economy. This article puts forward the proposition that one framework without another cannot work in managerial decision or competition policy enforcement actions. Uh, that's why to get a better understanding of big tech management and policy issues, capabilities frameworks can be used in conjunction with TCE or with Williamson contracting framework. Let's take a look at some following illustration to understand what this article means. The first illustration is about Google and Mapco. Mapco is a mobile mapping application, and you know that Google has an advertising company, or we call it AdCo. Suppose AdCo or Google's advertising company realized that selling advertisement will be more profitable if it linked to Mapco as a mobile mapping application. The question is, can Google and Mapco run together without integration or absent integration? Uh, Unfortunately, this article shows that it will be unstable because they need a dynamic capabilities to build, maintain, and exit any transaction cost of that. Why this article mentioned that it would be unstable? It's because if Google AdCo partner with Mapco, it is will allow Mapco to grow and become a potential competitor for Google. So it's not good for Google. And also, if in the future they were spirit each other, product upgrade on both sides will be amplify contractual complicated or difficult. So that's why it will be unstable for the ADCO and MEDCO to be well together without integration. That's why this article considered to have a common ownership between Google and Mapco, or considers to integration is the best way to organize that complicated situation. And the EC framework concludes that the horizontal integration is indicated when knowledge assets are as issue. And here the second illustration is about Google and still Google and YouTube. The question is whether should Google have had a contractual relationship or an ownership relationship with YouTube? By TCE framework, it's not immediately clear because they need to make a large investment to avoid the risk of a fundamental transformation. However, by a capabilities perspective, reinforces that insight. Knowing the consumer and how to index content, is a part of Google's core strength. And it's want to capture the result of such activity on YouTube platform. And moreover, Google has a strategic, in this article show it, that Google has a strategic interest in owning a video platform like YouTube. That's why this article supposed to Google's dynamic capability support the ownership or acquisition of YouTube. And the third illustration is about Apple. All we know that Apple is the most iconic device or system, isn't it? It provides a multiple insights into how TCE and also capabilities concept can be combined. It can be seen from Apple experience with application processor on the first iPhone models, if you know it, if you remember it. Apple could not design the processor in the available time. Furthermore, Intel was not excited to make a partnership with Apple at that time, and that's why then Apple turned to Samsung. However, because Apple does not have cheap design capabilities, the processor was not quite what Apple wanted at the time. However, because of it, it doesn't make sense that all of Apple's contractual choices are made with references to contractual issues only, because there is also need capabilities. So capabilities are still key to make Apple becoming existing a big company until right now. The aspect of integration and contracting, which is essentially a capability issues, is not present in transaction cost economic. And the last illustration is talking about Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. As we know that in 2012 and also 2014, Facebook acquired Instagram and WhatsApp. Unlike the previous illustration, in this illustration, this article wants to show two important things about that. The first one is the filer understanding Facebook acquisition by regulators. Regulators were not forward-looking. They didn't see that Instagram was ready to become a serious competitor to Facebook. And the second one is weakness of the traditional approach. In the view of traditional approach, capabilities doesn't matter much at all. So that's a problem for competition regulator policy. This illustration said that competition law with respect to potential competition has proven unworkable. That's why this article supposed to the economists and policymakers must begin to understand business from capabilities and TCA perspective. So they will see that there is something when we view the competition from the capabilities and TCE perspective. So not only from the traditional approach. Okay, and we go into the next topic: integration, decision, and dynamic capabilities. In tech firm, make or buy decisions are not just about writing or monitoring or enforcing a good contract, but also about access to capabilities, system integration also, and a firm level effect. An important consideration is whether integration allows for quicker response than contractual arrangement. Dynamic capabilities concerns are also implicated when choosing organizational form, as illustrated in the following table. I will show you. This table is a mapping of market characteristic to organizational forms. For example, here, if the market characteristic needs technological leadership, so the organizational form, it could be internal or integrated based, or external or contractual based. So it depends on the company. It will be here or here. It will be integrated based or contractual based, because it's in. And then the second example is if the market characteristic need to be ease of integration. So the organizational form should be integrated based rather than contractual based, and so on. Okay, we're going to the other table. In this table, this is the type of dynamic efficiencies. For example, learning by doing. Type of learning by doing is called both create and capture value, both of them. But however, if we choose the type of combining complementary distribution assets, it could be capture the value only, but not for create. Only capture the value, but not to create the value. So let's go into the next slide. This article also talk about ecosystem. The ecosystem has expanded still wider to include streaming platform, for example, and mobile devices. competition policy must look at complex network and ecosystem. For example, Dolby here is a nice sample to explain it more. Dolby is success primarily due to building and managing an ecosystem around high quality audio and video for the entertainment industry. The point is, to able to understand how Dolby competes, need to use an ecosystem framework. That's why it's important to use an ecosystem framework. And the next one is competitive policy issue. Efficiency versus monopoly trade-off. Another major contribution of Williamson to competition policy is the welfare trade-off in the context of horizontal merger. Welfare trade-off between lower cost production or efficiency versus welfare losses because of monopoly degree power. The challenge faced today in the technology sector is interpreting which efficiency is relevant now and how to measure it. In the traditional or neoclassical, efficiency is the lower marginal production cost and generate saving in fixed cost. But some research indicates that the welfare improvement associated with the organizational innovation is quite significant several years. So that's why, for that reason, Williamson trade-off model need to be revised to take innovation into account, and then recognizing that mergers can prevent both innovation and competition is also important. And the last one is this article talking about Williamson and the new Brandesians. Williamson will be critical of the new Brandesians for the same reason that he would be critical of some early Chicago school views on antitrust. He saw the public and private benefit of large integrated enterprises, and he was critical of industrial organization economies who resorted to a market power explanation they didn't understand. If mainstream antitrust analysts don't start using a broader or wider lens and become more intellectually pluralistic, as Williamson suggests, um, the Williamson idea will gain greater traction and become a new mainstream. It would be. And for the conclusion here, this in this article said the way to advance the fundamental understanding of complex business and economic organization is to implement a microanalytic research program in law, economics, and organization. By stringing two big locomotives together, asset specificity and capabilities, we can hopefully get deeper insight into the important competition policy issues of our times. That's all that I can convey and discuss with you. Thank you very much.